Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Sorry, you hit my microphone there. Um, I guess we really haven't touched upon the Catalyst part of the name here. The last episode, our main layer got raided, everything became harder, and we spent a ton of time trying to fight the same, um, the new final tier bad guy. Um, we have basically a side quest here that is not connected to really a person, but we're going to subvert the grid node CCU and connect it to your beat link in order to expand the coverage of the city. Basically, this unlocks fast travel and nothing else. Um, and I imagine this will just be kind of crawling around in all calm. I guess what these are probably supposed to be is kind of like puzzle areas. Interesting, you have a pipe here that's glowing with cables. Uh, yeah, it would be my guess that the grid links are places where you're going to be able to avoid conflict almost completely because fast traveling is the ultimate version of being able to avoid conflict. We still don't have the ability to curl our legs up, and still really don't know what happens if we hit the laser. It almost feels like it might just reset you, but they would have to do that fairly cautiously. Otherwise, you're gonna end up uh, watching a loading screen far too often. Hmm. Let's see. Hmm. It might just be a case that the little laser things are kind of nothing. There are two grid links, I guess. Okay. So slide or jump would be the question. Hmm. Probably jump easier than you could slide. Oh, well, jumping up actually did did you just a favor of immediately taking you to the next place. I wouldn't be surprised since we have now gotten kind of a confirmation of like the fact that we're halfway through the game, or at least halfway through the story. I wouldn't be surprised if we never see these poles as a thing anywhere else outside of these grid link areas. Hmm. Yeah, in the same way that we haven't seen these server racks that turn into ladders as an element. Yeah, this seems pretty easy. Hmm. So, unless it's a case that you're just impotently going to hop over this and miss this, which it does kind of feel like you could do that, it seems like I, I guess the question here would be to ask, can we do something like this and then a jump up on a wall? I mean, I probably could just wall run this. But if I do a slide wall run, I don't seem capable of turning to the side and jumping up to that. So we'll just do that anyways. We'll just wall run and jump over it. And that pretty much highlights that you could have wall run and jumped over a lot of these lasers. Still not really sure if this would set off some kind of lockdown or make you reset or hurt you. It seems likely that these grid nodes have to be moderately easy because you just aren't 100% certain when somebody would have done these. I wouldn't be surprised if there were players that decided to do the grid nodes as soon as they were possible. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some players that decide to do them after the entire main story's been finished. You're not even getting like plastic talking to you or anything like that. It does seem like the whole interface and the paths have changed. So seems like you now have to go different places. And I guess since there's two of them, there are actually two controllers. So that was step one. And I assume if I just fell down there, I would die. So probably have to get up here. Yep, probably have to jump this. I wasn't really expecting to make a swing and a jump there. That kind of did it by itself. Let's just not really confident in doing it that way. I think we let it go down and then we swing and jump. So you do something like this and that. That way you have more momentum to it. It might be that these grid nodes are progressively more difficult and there'll be 3 grid nodes in the next grid node location. It might very well be a case that these are actually completely separate buildings and it simply loads you into the easy, then the normal, then the hard, then the extra hard grid node in that order always, since these are separate buildings. Clearly this is a slight example of where this game could have been a lot bigger, because you totally could have had a lot more buildings like this where you're gonna I'm probably going the wrong way. Am I standing on top of this? Yeah, I am. Interesting. Just straight up standing on top of the yellow. It is still weird that everywhere you can grab is yellow. Getting this swing to work is awkward still. It seems like the swing is really just push forward and do nothing else. It's not swing, pull, push forward, pull back. Well, this is weird because it seems like I have to just kind of run and slide. And then by sliding under this keeps you under that crawling, which is not really something you can do otherwise. We'll do a wall run and jump for that just to make sure we get enough height. Is this the right move? What is our current? Reach the secondary CCU. Everything is pointing me in that direction, but I am somewhat concerned that I wasn't supposed to get up to that. I guess the question is there really a way to get up to that? I don't think there is. I think you do have to leave and come back. Interesting. A little off-putting, I would say, but it does do something different. My concern, of course, is you're going to run into this area and then immediately fight people, or that there's some weird collectible. You don't get the whole bright screen advertisement thing. Like, this is just a screen. It's just being extremely bright, and being extremely bright would kind of make more sense if it was daytime, but the odd day-night cycle on this game has chosen to put it into nighttime. This is basically just a ladder turned into stairs. I feel like they wanted you to see that way because they know you're gonna have to run back through the elevator to leave. Maybe nobody's gonna be chasing you, maybe somebody will be chasing you. It definitely does feel like... Is this door just locked? Yes, it is. So we're not going through the elevator. That seems a little disappointing. It definitely does seem like these grid nodes take up a lot of space, whereas Project Reflection feels like it's going to probably replace grid nodes completely and use human brains as zombies. Hacking grid nodes unlocks the ability to fast travel. This one unlocks safe houses in Triumvirate Drive and Centurion Yard. Press B to see the safe houses on the map. So this safe house and I think this safe house. If not, then I have no idea. And it's really not worth it to like try and do this run because we're back into this dangerous mode where if I even walk by a camera, I will be setting off an alarm, and setting off an alarm will cause the Kruger sect to start chasing after me. Yeah, so as soon as you hear that scanning grid print sound effect, yep, or if you just happen to accidentally jump in the wrong direction, this has effectively ruined the idea of taking your time and just looking for grid leaks. The good news, I guess, is that we haven't been here before, so some of these grid leaks are new to us. Which I guess that just means we just have not been in this area. Which I guess that kind of makes sense. The way these worlds are expanding is we started here and then we were kind of staying within this circle. And then we had a main story that took us to about this area. And then at some point we just started opening a massive chunk of stuff And I don't know if there was any real maiden quest even in this region. And then eventually we started going to other regions, and they were pretty much automatically open. So we want to do this next story, Sanctuary, not only because it hides, it unlocks, I think, most, if not all, of the remaining unlocks that you get from skill upgrades. But I am hoping it also solves some things. Since our Sanctuary was raided, the layer was raided, we're probably going to have to take Sanctuary with Dogen, which, remember that old Dogen situation and plastic with the security drive. That it's been hours since they've mentioned that, and it would have been very easy to forget about that. Had they raided the layer and the security hard drive had been there, then you would obviously have known that's why Kruger Sec raided the places for that hard drive. But getting the information to Dogen may not actually do any good either. We are maybe past the halfway point, and we'll finally have better reasoning other than just trying to make some money or do petty crimes as to why we're doing the things we're doing, even if it is just a generic revenge plot for Noah. The other runners, including Noah, are dead or missing. We don't know if Noah's actually dead. I didn't see him dead. We need to find somewhere to hide until it calms down.
Another crane, Icarus.
I'm up in the control booth. Hang on while I figure out the controls here.
Dangerous gang leader killed in Kruger Sec.
Gang leader killed? Icarus, are you seeing this?
I see it. They killed him. The bastards killed him.
Noah.
Damn it. We need to disappear, Faith. I talked to Rebecca Zane, and she's offering us sanctuary.
No.
There's the choosers. We have nowhere else to go.
Noah didn't trust Rebecca.
So we're joining Black November with Rebecca instead of Dogen.
Go. But I'm not staying long.
Only until this whole thing blows over. I'll send you the location.
And they're saying
Till we're there.
Noah's dead. I don't know if you particularly should believe that. You can see that the news are now talking about the runners, but in a funny way, it's like the runners probably are known to a lot of citizens, so it's a decent number of society probably already knows the truth about the runners, but not enough to speak out. Notice how this camera has been like hard programmed to look in this way so it won't catch you. So I guess the idea here is this construction redistricting. This might be the redistricting zone. This very well may be where Black November hangs out. Yeah, this is development zone. Alright. So we're still in a situation where we really can't just wander around looking for collectibles as much as we would like. Even though that's exactly what I'm doing. It's kind of funny to have these Allcom electrical parts on both sides of the walls. This one I can't open. And that's not a document or record, that's actually the lid of this that I imagine will just despawn at some point. Deportation to the Greylands. We don't know what the Greylands really are. But yeah, I assume these outfits are Black November members. when they have the black outfits with the black eyeliner. This is a somewhat familiar area. There was a big round underground section in the first game, and here we can see a big round hole in the ground section. And here you have just a normal dressed person. Right. You can see how awkward it can be, certainly, to try and let's see if this falls and kills us. Like, if you go the wrong path, it's very awkward to try and find the right path, or try to find a pipe to slide down. Like, yeah, I may simply not be able to slide. Wouldn't it make a lot of sense if there was a kind of Prince of Persia-esque knife in the wall curvature to slide down on the edge of these walls while you're running and go lower and lower, instead of just lose momentum and fall to your death. But nope. That's just yet another gameplay mechanic that is missing in a world that needs a lot of gameplay mechanics. I'm confused. We're once again having the Sonic experience where it's telling you to leap, but you can still die from leaping. Here we have gravel sound effects as we're running around, which I could get fairly annoying very fast. Or here you have more metal sound effects when you're running around. I feel like in the original game there was some of that too, where it was fairly annoying sometimes to listen to the feet. Right. Yep. In the original game, though, it was more of a race to get to the top of a circle like this, and I imagine we will eventually have that same situation where we race to get to the top. Although with a grapple ability, which was not in the original game, it might be very easy to get to the top of something like this.
Are you there?
Yes, girl, I am.
Are you sure they're not listening?
No, I'm not. We should keep this short. No names or locations. Have you found an inn?
I have. They don't suspect anything and have no idea who I am.
Good. Make sure it stays that way. We need someone on the inside. Give me an update in a week. Same channel.
Got it. I will.
So something sneaky there. I don't understand why you would have a door that takes that long and has that custom animation to open, unless you actively were going to have a scenario where somebody's chasing you, and these kinds of doors would be the doors that are a kiss of death, as it were, and that you just cannot run towards these doors for that reason. You can see there's a rather large amount of rust on this metalwork and this construction, which does kind of imply that this city is being built on top of another city. Which that's somewhat believable. Yeah. It would be a weird twist, but it would be definitely an interesting twist if it turned out that Mirror's Edge Catalyst is actually set in the same universe as Mirror's Edge, and people are clones or Matrix-like emulation simulations, and so this is just version 2 of the same story, even though in reality it is version 2 of the same story, but if canonically it was version 2 of a simulation. That's kind of what the Assassin's Creed games were trying to go for, is that there would have been originally, the original creator of Assassin's Creed wanted a trilogy set in the past with then the person running the simulations and seeing the events of the past in the first 3 games, then learning how to be an assassin themselves and using that skill in modern time. Unfortunately, the person who originally created Assassin's Creed didn't get to finish his vision, and thus the Assassin's Creed series ended up staying in the past for way longer than he planned. Here you can see there's like 2 collectibles there. And then eventually they did just straight up change what Assassin's Creed was as a series completely, away from being a hardcore assassin simulator into just a very generic RPG. I think we can't get this collectible because we don't have the ability to pull that down. So we'll leave that for now. I could probably just go ahead and grab this. Now here's an interesting question. If I roll off and fall to my death, did it save me where I landed, or did it save me where I jumped and it saved me where I landed? Which what that proves is it's actually safer to not roll if there's any chance whatsoever of you rolling off a ledge. It is just better to let your shield deplete. It's not like you're taking real damage. It would be a different experience certainly if you had either 3 or 4 health at this point. I have 4 because I upgraded it once, and then that amount of health was depleted every time you had a hard fall, and after you completely depleted it, it would potentially reset you at some checkpoint further back, or at the beginning of missions, which the beginning of a mission could be a very far distance from where you are. Let's see. This is one of these falling action areas, certainly, you can tell.
Okay, Tristan, the Scrambler is active now. They might listen to what we say, but they'll have no way of locating us.
Wonderful. How long will it last?
We have a few minutes. The Scrambler will alert us if we're being geolocated. It's new tech. I had the Wonderkin and Anchor build it, but I had to use a proxy. She won't deal with us directly. The KSEC is busy on the rooftops these days, and I guess
Is
she
that
doesn't want extra
plastic?
attention.
She'll come around. Speaking of busy, the information about the Elysium job checked out. Somebody broke in. They must have stolen something really important too, considering the buzz all over town.
Any idea what?
None yet. I'll look into it and whoever pulled the job off. I miss you, Rebecca. See you soon.
I miss you too. Be safe, Tristan.
So, who's Tristan? Do we know a Tristan? This definitely feels like at some point you are going to just be able to swing here. interesting how twisty this stair is with no support. I don't feel like it particularly serves much if we found out Rebecca was not to be trusted or was an actual bad guy. That Rebecca turned out to be the one that, like, exposed the layer compared to Icarus. I wouldn't be surprised if Icarus is Tristan, since Icarus is a fake name and Tristan is a real sounding name. You still definitely have a problem here where you can run around and experience things now looking for collectibles, and then there's almost certainly going to be a point where the game starts chasing you around an area and you have some dash that will point you towards more collectibles. That's lit up, but I don't know if that's something you're actually going to interact with. I wouldn't be really surprised if there's a flood wall, a dam wall, and we're going to have to activate that and move that out of the way to make a bridge, or move it up to make a bridge. Yeah. And I think we're still in Sanctuary as far as the missions. Yep. So they lit up both sides of that to make it kind of obvious that that's where you needed to go, when it isn't really that obvious. I think mostly that's because I still have yet to embrace the mentality that yellow means go somewhere, because if I did fully embrace that subconsciously, then I would want to go this direction as much as I would want to go that direction, and it would be fairly easy for a player to say, oh, let me go check this out. I am fairly certain that's where we started. In fact, I jumped around a lot getting collectibles when I would have just walked by them anyways. I don't completely agree with the fact that it seems like you can just tap the right bump jump on these railings and you'll get way higher jumps, even if you don't have any momentum behind you. It would feel natural, of course, if you're running and then you tapped on it and then jumped and kind of double jumped. But if you just made a curve or something and you're just static here, that shouldn't really let me get that high, considering there are so many other places where jumps don't get that high. Just a static jump totally would have not reached that pole. And a double jump standing in one place doesn't give you any extra height. We're starting to see more construction textures, which, yeah, if I was the game director for this game, I would probably have considered not green lighting as much underground construction textures. These walls could have been plain white walls in the same way that the walls inside of other buildings could have been plain white walls, if that would have effectively potentially given me more time and budget to make one more building or one more place to run around, which would be more appreciated than slightly different visuals. Of course, more than likely these are just pre-made textures that they bought, so probably didn't actually take that much time or budget to do that. Here we can see there's water on my screen. So many games love this effect where you have like dripping water show up on the screen, and it almost never makes sense because you're not wearing a helmet or camera screen. People don't get drops of water in their eye and then all of a sudden have water on their vision. That's not how human eyeballs work. That's probably one of the worst examples of a feature being added to engines like the Unreal Engine. Maybe this very possibly wasn't made in Unreal Engine, but to game engines like that, where features get added and then programmers want to use the features without being smart enough to think it through. Because, yeah, it is totally believable that a programmer would be enthralled with a feature, so much so that they wouldn't give two thoughts to the idea that human eyes don't work that way. Yeah, I could see myself doing that very easily. A lot of electrical things, but no glowing electricity or anything like that. And I would probably argue that 6,600 volts. Yeah, I guess that would be a reasonable amount of volts to expect going through a hydroelectric dam. So we're opening that door. How do we reach that door? I guess you just jump. And that felt like too far of a jump. Would have made a lot of sense to have some trash bags or something here to point out where you're going. They're heavily trying to rely on the runner's vision to tell you where to go, but the runner's vision is just not that good to trust. And we have some falling action music playing and stuff like that. Okay, so this was where we were before, and we've now opened the doors, so we've opened a whole shortcut, which is kind of great because if we look at the map here, this is its own little separate map. The Omnistat tunnels. So I was expecting we might go to a whole different city, but seems like you wouldn't have an underground mapped tunnel area and a whole different city. Unless we walk out of this and we are in a completely different city, which would be interesting. It would also give a great excuse as to how we come back to Glass City and security would be not as tight. Nice shadow technology here they're showing off. We haven't seen a lot of this. I wouldn't be surprised if we find plastic here. Also, since it may just be all runners throughout all of Glass City are going to try and take sanctuary in this place. Yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised if this is close to it and we will just find them living in this underground hydroelectric dam area. Pick up a document.
And that makes two of you. Go on in. Rebecca's waiting.
So it's only two. That's interesting bit of information. Also kind of seems like there are...
Damn shame about the raid. And Noah. Sorry.
Seems like there's really only two skins for Black November. Then we've got a whole cutscene.
Faith! Down here.
We still haven't gotten that tattoo.
I've seen the news. Faith, I'm sorry.
No need to pretend.
No, but I am. Look, Noah and I may not have seen eye to eye, but I did respect him. And your parents.
She's got all kinds of
I always said you
burns
were
on
part of the
her
same
arm.
group.
Yes. We were. Till I realized that there's no peaceful way we can rid ourselves of the conglomerate and the families behind it. We've got to destroy it.
I don't feel like
Using every weapon at our
the
disposal.
face
I know
animation
what you
here
think, but you're wrong.
is particularly as
have
good
it.
as it should
See,
be
I think you do.
with this voice
And
acting.
that's why Krugersek is hunting you, and why they killed Noah.
Back off!
Look, I'm sheltering you for now, but don't take my hospitality for granted. At some point, I'm gonna ask you to step up or step out.
That's enough, Rebecca. You've made your point.
Look, all I'm saying is this. You're no longer neutral, Faith.
It's always funny how you have
Just
these immediate
rest.
confrontations
I'm sure
in
you'll
stories
understand in time. Tristan will show you your quarters.
when that really wouldn't work. Okay, that's
We'll talk
Tristan.
again soon.
He has all these tattoos on him, but they don't particularly immediately look like the pattern tattoos.
I need to finish this.
You have no right! Don't touch him! Erica!
Yep.
Shoot him.
So the memory is definitely showing that the parents
The damn kid, get her!
seems like they're gonna get shot.
Where's mommy? I want mommy.
It'd be funny if Faith is not actually Faith and she stole Kat's identity. Or Kat stole Faith's identity. So she was gassed. Kat was gassed.
Faith, come see me ASAP.
So you might as well have just had that full cutscene play very early in the game if you were just going to kill Kat or set up the idea that Kat is dead and that it's different from the original game where Kat was alive and played a pretty major role in the story. And if you were going to say the parents are dead, which is believable, then you should just have said that immediately. Alright, what can we now upgrade? Focus shield, double wall run, extended slide, or carbon weave for more health, which is almost certainly what we need. Light transversal damage would be nice, but we won't be able to use it very often. Heavy transversal damage would be nice, but we won't be able to use it that often. Unless the game just kind of goes off the rails and we start having to fight people non-stop and we start to see more Krugersek people individually wandering the rooftops. Like in these visuals we're seeing, in both cases there's one security guard. We have never seen less than 2 security guards in any scenario. Increased damage to sentinels would be nice, but I suppose you start with stamina. Or you get the disruptor. I think you just take the disruptor for now. Because at least that gives us the opportunity to think about using it. We may need to use it. In fact, the story may literally just tell us we have to use it, and if you spend your points somewhere else, you might have to wander around the overworld doing side missions to get points. This is an incredibly dark alternative to the layer that we had before. Yep, and definitely doesn't feel like there's a lot of Black November members. Seems like there's metal doors locking people in, and then people talking to you through the walls. Go ahead and pick up that document. I figured there would be something hidden there. It's silly, though, to introduce Kat as a character and then just have her be dead. Interesting. I saw sparks in the water, so are they going to introduce the idea of potentially getting electrocuted if you walk in the water? It's just weird that you would have so many doors underground like this. This feels like this is an old subway tunnel that they're repurposing. Like, so I would say there's a 60% chance that Kat is actually alive. Where I would only give the odds 40% that she's actually dead. I don't have the ability to pull the grapple. Was that actually an ability I could have upgraded? Let's see. You know, you have to complete Viva Low Resistance to do that one, so we haven't reached that. Yeah. If she is dead, then the whole flashbacks aren't really necessary. Like, you could have just removed them completely from the game. Or you could have had people just talk about them instead of paying for the animation. Or it could have just been a recording or a document. Like, these flashbacks need to pay off and have some value. I can't help but once again make comparisons to, I believe it was Assassin's Creed 2, where the good guys ended up in a secret lair with a whole bunch of technology and computers and monitors. They definitely were influenced.
You look like a runner. What's your name?
Which these games may not have come out that close to each other, but you never know how long a game like this may have been in development and how seriously they were actually developing the game. They could have been very slowly working on it for 5, 6, 10 years even. And then the influences in the game like that could be fairly dated. Of course, other influences could create a scene like this easily too, like watching the Matrix movies or any number of other movies.
Hey.
It's not like it's a particularly unique concept to have a whole bunch of screens. I guess we'll start this quest since we have a little bit more time, but we may not finish it. You escaped Kruger's crackdown by taking refuge with Black November deep down in the old Omnistat tunnels. I wonder if Omnistat is still part of the conglomerate or if they've gone bankrupt and gone out of existence. Beneath the rezoning district, the leader Rebecca Thane claims to have known your parents, but your gut tells you that they were never close friends. Would it possibly be the case that Rebecca is Kat? I mean, it could definitely be the case with the burns on her skin and maybe some kind of like I don't know, torture, facial aging technology or something that the bad guys may have done to her. That, because there's a possibility, but I just don't really think I would go that direction. I think it would make a lot more sense to believe it was actually Faith's mother and that Noah is actually Faith's father. Now, Rebecca demands your help with what remains to be seen.
You called?
I wanted to give you some rest.
Interesting how it jumped you around.
Here, and we all need to pull our weight.
Krugersack?
They're moving into the tunnels, setting up some new type of stationary sentry drone. They're getting way too close for comfort, and those sentry drones need to be dealt with before they're activated, or we'll be unable to move around.
I can help.
I expected no less. Icarus is already out there, and again, the drones are not active yet.
Again, the camera is not moving.
But watch out for Krugersack patrols.
On my way. Send me the locations.
I will. Do this, and we can all breathe a little easier.
Definitely would have made more sense for you to end up in this area and have a very brief 2-sentence conversation when you first arrive. Something along the lines of, why don't you get settled in and take a rest, and I'll contact you tomorrow later on this evening, and we'll talk later on this evening. Like,
I hope Krugersack doesn't come looking for you here.
the kind of obnoxiousness of immediately, as soon as somebody arriving, demanding, telling them, I'm gonna require you to fight with us, is not the kind of leadership that you would expect somebody in charge of Black November to have. You would expect them to do. Did I just step on a rat?
Built to last, unlike anything produced by the conglomerate.
So is the idea that Omnistat was the corporation in charge before? Have there been multiple corporations? In this universe, have there never really been governments in the first place? That would be hard to believe, that there was never the idea of a government, but not crazy. Yeah, there's a phrase called love bombing that's become somewhat popular as the idea of
learned that the sentry drones are still packaged and guarded. You'll have to find a way to destroy them.
that it's the idea of putting a lot of positivity out there towards someone and getting them to trying to get them to fall in love with you before then you start being an abusive jerk, or I guess that is the implied second part of the phrase of love bombing. Although, in all fairness,
Everything in order, Control.
maybe bombing implies there's too much positively being given to a new relationship, but I would kind of want any new relationship to start with a lot of positivity, but I guess maybe a realistic amount of it, not a bomb amount of it. Okay, so we are just gonna open these and
Found the first sentry drone.
push it over.
And a way to deal with them.
Good.
Okay,
2 more to go.
that's a cool idea.
Faith,
Certainly.
Krugersack are getting wise to your presence. Expect more of them at the second sentry drone.
Like, just having something that you push over does. I don't have a double wall run ability, although I do think I have an upgrade ability. Right. This definitely does feel like this is going to be more of a thing.
No ordinary creature.
Still seemingly taking like 2 hits to take anybody out, unless I get the slide kick. And then if I get the slide kick, I can take them out in one. And you can see these guys definitely have a lot of guns that they're more than willing to use now. Whereas previously, they were just trying to hit you with generic batons, it felt like.
I'm pushing the second sentry drone into a chasm now.
Music to my ears, Faith. Only one more and it's done. Keep going.
Yeah, they only brought 3 of them. Since we have another upgrade, I guess that we tried to disrupt and it did seem like it worked. Getting to the point where you have an increased range and decreased charge requirement might be nice. I think at this point, since we have seen the double wall run become a thing, we should probably just unlock that. But we don't have a point. So, what is it that we do have that's being pointed in the last lower left screen?
And soon they will be ready to rise.
I guess maybe that is the disruptor charge in the lower left
Families have
part of
created
the screen.
an unsustainable society. Unlimited growth. Unlimited consumption. It's madness. And it will ultimately destroy us all if we don't force the employees to change their ways.
That was interesting. You know, if you're going to see that much garbage fly, the door should have just probably broken.
Midcast have grown complacent. But we will shock them awake, Faith. Only when they've experienced real fear and loss will they understand what really matters.
This is barbed wire. I can't get over this.
They are the enemy too.
Alright, so she's Black November's not so much with the conglomerate or the midcast. Right. So you go up here, do this, do this. Go over here and then do that. Feels like the disruptor or some skill like the disruptor should exist to get rats to attack the bad guys. Otherwise these rats are just going to be underused elements. Somebody would have had to program the rats to either move in scripted positions or interact with a simplistic artificial intelligence. Of course, if we did have people getting eaten by rats in this game, that would be much more along the lines of a like Dishonored experience, the game Dishonored. I guess there is only one path here. It's down this way.
Cougar Sec are sending in reinforcements, Faith. Be careful.
I can handle them.
This is like the first time I think we've ever seen them actively put things in the right direction so that you could actually hurt people. Yeah. That should have been the entirety of this game. Should have been things like that, where there was a clear, defined runner's vision line of where you were supposed to go, with enemies standing in the prime example spots of where you would want them to knock them out. Of course, still enough room here for failure. And since I am off the beaten path. Yep. There. So one guy still was able to just wander around. Push the last one in.
The final sentry drone now.
Take notice that they didn't have to actually.
There's a set of doors operated by a console.
They didn't have to actually show you what the drone even looked like. They just made a very generic box, and that was good enough to push over. So they saved themselves some 3D modeling in that case. Although I imagine the sentry drone concept is going to come back. Here we can see the mark and we can hear it, but it's another one of these pull down areas, so we're just gonna have to come back later on. But I do imagine we are going to run around this area once doing these quests, and then we'll probably come back later on and get all the collectibles. This would be a decent place for them to try and push you towards getting all the collectibles possible. Let's see. Again, I'm going to take the double wall run as an option. Although it still might be the move to just increase our damage. Yeah. It's very believable that there would be something secretly down in these Kruger shipping containers. Let's see. They wanted me to just take the slide, and instead I'm gonna just collect everything. I guess the question certainly to ask here though is, it's only really giving you 10 XP by collecting all of those. So I'm just saving myself some time later on, assuming I actually try to get all the grid links or grid leaks. It is a leak, L-E-A-K, not a link, L-I-N-K. But you can't deny that we are benefiting from. Oops, there was another one of those slight hitches. Again, though I will say, not happening very often. I fully suspect that's just this game being a little slow to load in new areas. It certainly isn't the audio stuttering that I was having when my computer was breaking, or like shader loading in micro stuttering, which has been a growing problem for a lot of games. And I suspect some of the reason why it's been a growing problem for a lot of games is actually Windows 10 optimization features being turned on without consulting the actual game developers whether they should be turned on or not. But a slight hitch for 1 second and then not seeing anything else is, I won't say acceptable, but it is much more understandable compared to where would this lead me? He's just in a different section. It's understandable compared to way other larger problems that I've seen games have. Can I climb up there and reach that ladder? No. Can I get up there and reach that at the moment? No.
Hi.
I guess the general idea is that even though these Black November people exist, they aren't really runners so much. You're not seeing them run around and trying doing parkour or anything. They're just kind of standing around in general. And they all look about the same. They kind of Asian-ish. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Asian release of this game where all the characters were a little bit more Asian looking. Faith already kind of looks that way.
You gotta be Faith.
So it's only side characters like Noah. I would suspect there's probably not any real collectibles in this area, because that would be a little bit too on the nose. Big giant air vent. Alright, well, let's see. So we have 10 out of 24 grid leaks, 2 out of 6 surveillance recordings, 3 out of 4 documents, 0 out of 5 secret bags, and 11 out of 14 electronic parts, which does kind of hint at that we're not going to spend a ridiculous amount of time in this area, just enough to kind of forget about what the overworld was like and then end up coming back. Now, I do see that there's one dash we can do. We probably want to try and complete that now, because I can't imagine that there's an easy way to switch here. I guess it's up on the D-pad. So we are here. Yeah. We are standing here next to the glowing light. So pretty much this entire district, which I thought we may not actually do anything with, is instead the underground district. Which really just leaves about this triangle as far as an area that we haven't visited, and maybe a few more buildings that we can access around the edges, although very possibly we won't ever access them, or we'll only access them in some kind of final mission. And then the assumption still is very much that at some point we will end up on this tower, and this will be the final part of the game. It would not be as impactful, certainly, if that tower just got blown up or something. So, yeah, I think I pretty much have to abandon hope that there's going to be another city. And I guess if you were going to make a Mirror's Edge Catalyst 2, which seems like that's very unlikely that that would happen, you might just want to make a new city in a new environment. You almost, I hate to suggest DLC, but DLC might be the right way to go for a Mirror's Edge game, to just add a whole different city with the exact same story, instead of trying to tell a new narrative. Yeah, because even though I would say Mirror's Edge Catalyst and their online EA Origin concept here, I believe it's EA. This is an EA game. The idea of making this an online service was implemented poorly at the wrong time. In modern times, it kind of would have make sense to turn this into a live service game that is just constantly getting new environments and new cities. Of course, I think Minecraft probably is a better example. If there was a way to snap map, that's from Doom, the snap map technology, but if there was a way to just make your own sandboxed buildings and drag them around, or just have randomly spawning buildings show up, and you had kind of a Minecraft game where there was infinite land in all directions and infinite parkouring in all directions, that might be the way to go instead of trying to have a story. I don't hate the stories in the original game or this one so far, but in neither game did the story really benefit the gameplay features. And there's definitely some amount of budget and effort was put around rebooting this game that should have been put around improving this game a little bit more instead of just giving the mag rope as a feature. Like, they could have just had the same bad guys from the first game, same textures and skins. Now, if you were going to remake this game a third time, you would have better facial scans anyways, because it's not particularly great as far as the facial visuals. But that's about the only thing that they've added new is the mag rope, the sliding, the kicking, being able to upgrade things with RPG, upgrade points. Those all, I think, existed in the first game, and I don't think they benefit anything. It would have been better just to say you get XP, and when you get XP, your health goes up 10%, your speed goes up 10% to a maximum. Adding Disrupt, adding the mag rope. That's kind of it. Some of these features were unlocked as soon as you started the game. If the next one is Viva Resistance, what I was trying to look here is to see if anything is locked behind anything, or if we can now potentially upgrade everything. It seems to me, with the exception of beating the entire game to get the grid link mapping, finishing Viva Resistance is the last thing that you have to do. Which, honestly, that does imply that there might be only 10, maybe 11, maybe 12 main missions. As far as side missions, we know that there's a couple grid nodes that we haven't done. We know there's 4 in total, so there's 2 more there, and that may be it. So 10 main missions, 10 side missions. And then as far as other runs, we know that there's quite a bit of those. We know that there's a ton of collectibles and story content, but obviously none of it can be important, because if any of it was important, they would have to tell you completely. Well, actually, it does look like there is some backstory here that's fairly important. Out of the Great Regression rose Omnistat, inspired by tales of ancient utopias and classless societies, where every citizen had equal value in production, was owned and shared by all. Omnistat quickly swallowed up the majority of the isolated settlements and surviving cities. this a great regression. We don't know what that is, though. Sometimes peacefully, it swallowed up the cities, sometimes not. Some refused to acknowledge the Amistad way of life and resisted to the bitter end, causing more strife and paranoia. Progress was still made, though. Ancient ideas were rediscovered and new technologies developed. Slowly but inexorably, civilization began to restore itself after the limbo of the regression, and the Omnistat cities grew fast as people abandoned the smaller settlements and migrated to the urbanized areas. Some of the graylands that had been blasted in the old wars were recultivated with varying success, and the population grew considerably. So, generally, it feels like what's happening here is that there was a great war called the Great Regression. It destroyed technology. It destroyed a lot of progress. And then Omnistat came out as this, like, I guess you'd call it a socialist society if you're saying everyone has equal value and production was owned and shared by all. No, I guess that would be maybe even a communist society. But, well, socialist means it's generally owned by the people, or said to be owned by the people, where communist says it's owned by the state. So it would be closer to a socialist society. But obviously the Omnistat years and Omnistat as a concept and a government fell. I really wish that they would have told me that, though, and not made me read the backstory. It probably would have made a lot of sense to have some kind of introduction to set up the whole world. But at a certain level, I guess it also doesn't matter what the history of this world is. It only kind of matters what the history of Faith is and her perception of the world. And I suspect Faith probably doesn't know much about Omnistat either. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.